Oh, I have it open in a different tab.
Me too.
I was like, why is the music still playing?
Because I'm not an amateur like you.
So was my face just shocked? Hi, and welcome to the Nostalgia Train Book Club live show discussion for Ranger's Apprentice. This was our pick for March in collaboration with the Tome Travelers, which Anne is here as the representative from the Tome Travelers. I'm also joined by some other besties. Wrong way.
That don't yet have book clubs. We'll get them then. I mean, Mars at least has like readathons, so.
True, yeah, true.
I got nothing.
You have a write-a-thon.
Oh, okay.
Happening later this month.
That's
My
true.
internet is not working very well. It's cut out 3 times in the 30 seconds we've been live.
Oh no, we need you because you are our kind of nostalgia expert for this pick. Speaking of which,
y'all know.
We can introduce ourselves and our history with the book. I'm Violet of the channel Writing Violet. You should all know me by now because I'm the host of this crazy train over here. My introduction to Ranger's Apprentice was last year from this one over here during our Nostalgia New Year readathon. There was a prompt that said, get a recommendation from a friend, one of their nostalgic reads. And Mars told me that this was a childhood favorite that they had. And I was like, yep, I'm going to read your childhood favorite. And I read it last year and I read it again in March. So I've now read it twice. I hadn't really heard of it before, but it did kind of like ring a bell. Like, oh yeah, that sounds like something that I knew existed, sort of.
Yeah, this has been... I have my really old, gross copy that's like stained and doesn't have a dust jacket from middle school, because the first time I read this was in 7th grade. So I was 12, maybe? And my English class teacher always made you bring in a book every single day, and she would like check when you came in the morning if you had a book, so that if you finish your work, you had something to do. And this one day, I realized I didn't have a book, so my older brother was like, hey, I have a couple of books, you can pick one off of my shelf. And I grabbed this, and I remember I read it in one sitting because I just absolutely fell in love with it. And so it's just been my favorite book series for like the past decade. And I did not know a single other person who had even heard of this book other than my brother until, was that like 2018 when I actually met my boyfriend. And he was like, yeah, I read that series before. And I was like, oh my god. But I'm very excited that now other people are reading it and enjoying it.
Is it me or is it Michael?
It's you.
Okay. So I haven't read or heard of Ranger's Apprentice before until like the beginning of this year or like the end of last year. Because last year I read the entire Cirque du Freak series, like one book a month. And I was looking for something similar, like middle grade or young YA, about like 10, 12 books. And I think, Mars, did you recommend this to me? At least, I feel like, yeah, you did. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll pick this up. And I haven't up until now, which I'm ashamed. But good news is there's only 10 books, so I can still read one a month for the rest of the year. And I talked about this with my fellow book club hosts, Am and Han, and they actually did read this in middle school. It was actually how they like became friends, and probably the reason that they're writers. So it's very nostalgic and special to them. And so this was the perfect book to collab with Violet, and because we don't usually do middle grade, but
yeah, shout out to Em and Han, because that's actually the reason we chose Ranger's Apprentice and Apprentice theme for our collab. Was because when we were talking all the different books that we could use for a collab, and I mentioned this one, they were like, oh my gosh. So they both kind of had a little bit stand moment, I guess.
Yeah, but unfortunately they can't be here. But we already did discuss this book on our live show, which you can catch on our channel if you want to rewatch that. I think it was a good time. Violet was there, the only one who did finish her book. Yeah.
My turn?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm Michael. all that stuff. I do the AuthorTube streaming things. For me, Ranger's Apprentice, I did hear about it in BookTube. Okay, so I knew it kind of from BookTube. But really, I'd say,
You weren't adult at this point, though, right? Like, you didn't hear about this as a child, like Mas did.
No, this was just like a year ago, or less. But yeah, that's just about it. And then, it's just the book being a nostalgia train pick and me just saying, hey, why not? And jumping aboard, getting my ticket punched. And yeah, I just went to the bookstore, bought a copy, read it. And yeah, that's about it. The rest is history. And that's me.
Great.
Why are you
thank you for being here, everybody. I'll also say hi to the chat. We have Ink Study here for the vibes. We also have Emma. Hi, Emma. Michael, Future Book Club. Michael reads actually like a lot of classics. I think
Yeah, you'd have like one book club discussion a year. That sounds reasonable for you.
Emma is feeling old.
No, don't feel old.
He's saying, my son used to read these.
See, so you have an angle that we do not.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I didn't really prep any special banners for this session just because I don't have any like that I thought of. I'm going to put up the spoiler banner. We're just going to be discussing book 1.
If masks can contain themselves, you mean.
It's fine. I'm not going to spoil anything.
Okay.
I'll believe
you. Should we just start off with do we want to start with plot and pacing or the apprentice mentor trope?
Do you want to summarize the book for those that haven't read it? I mean, Callie, not myself.
Wow, Anne. We don't do the format of your book club over here. Okay.
Well, this is a collab, so I can request it, can't I?
Okay. How about you summarize it then, Anne?
I will happily summarize the first half of it. Thank you. So, our main character, I mean, there's a couple of main characters, but our main character in this book is called Will. And Will is an orphan, as all good main characters are. And Will and his mother... What?
So casual.
Not true.
Yeah, where's the lie?
So Will and these other 4 babies basically grow up as like orphans in the castle because what is he? Is he Lord? Baron. I don't know what his title is. A Baron. So he feels responsible for the kids of the like people that died fighting his wars and stuff. So he takes them in and he kind of, he doesn't raise them himself, but he has people. Anyway, get what I mean. And so Will is one of those 5. And when they turn 15 that year, they have to kind of choose like their trade. And how this works is that they have this choosing ceremony where like all of these big people from those specific trades. So like one for the battle school and then one for like mannerisms and then one is like scribbles or something. So all of these different
scribes.
I was close.
And just summarize everything. This is great.
Yes, thank you. And so like
the scribble master.
So those 5 kids stand there in the room and, some of them are nervous, some of them kind of know what they want to do. But Will doesn't know because Will is small and he really wants to go to battle school because he believes that his dad was like, a knight fighting. We don't know because, he was a baby and nobody knows. He also doesn't have a last name or like connection. And so he's the only one that kind of doesn't really have a plan. And he's standing there and, he's like, well, I want to go to battle school. And the battle school dude is like, nah, thanks. And
because he's too small.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
if you guys actually want to know the size order, I have it written in my notes. The tallest is Horace, then comes Alice, then comes George, then comes Jenny, then comes Will.
Though Jenny does try to let Will get that slot, and then
because they're the same size, and Jenny's a little bit hunted just for Will's ego, I thought.
Yeah. But there is so unusual about this ceremony is that the ranger is like that, and the ranger's kind of this dude that we don't really know a lot about in the beginning, except that he's kind of sneaky. I think that's a good word to describe him. And, you know,
A hooded figure.
Stealthy.
yeah. And he lives, like, not in the castle, but, like, outside in a cottage, whatever. And so Will's kind of like, what the hell is this dude doing here? But, you know, he doesn't really know. And the ranger actually slips I forgot his title again, Baron?
Yes.
Thank you. A note about Will. And Will's like, what's up with this? So, after the ceremony, Will doesn't, like, the Baron is like, I'll tell you tomorrow my choices. And so Will is like, okay, well, I need to know what's on this, you know, piece of paper. It's about me. So he climbs the tower and breaks into the Baron's, like, chambers. And he's about to, like, get the note. And then the ranger actually, you know, holds his hand. It's like, you don't get to read this, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, he finds out it was a test. And the Baron's like, well, you know what? You can become a ranger's apprentice. This is your punishment. And so Will goes out and becomes a ranger's apprentice, and the ranger makes him do all the housework, as any good teacher would on the first day. And then Will's like, what do you even do? And the ranger's like, you know, we listen. We have eyes, we have ears, we do that. And scout and, like, help. And so then he, you know, teaches him. And then right about that time, we also get the second POV of, like, Horace. Like, it's all written in third person, but we get, like, alternating chapters, one from Will and one from Horace, because Horace is in battle school and he's being bullied, but apparently he's a very natural fighter, and so the fighting people notice that and they think it's really cool. And that's about where I left off. Oh no, wait, the horse. There's a horse. The ranger, whose name is Holt, H-A-L-T, takes Will to this horse person, and, you know, there's
Do you remember his name?
He's old something. Or Bob, maybe?
Yeah.
Oh, Bob, yeah.
He's an
Yeah.
icon.
And he smells like a farm.
He does. A stable, I think, is how it's described, right? Anyway, so there's two horses. One of them belongs to the ranger, and one of them is supposed to be for Will. So Will's like, well, can I mount this horse? And the ranger's like, try. And then, you know, he mounts the horse, and he's thrown off the horse. And then the ranger tells him that you have to whisper to the horse in order to be able to get permission to ride the horse, which is the special thing about ranger's horses. And then Will rides the horse after whispering in the horse's ear. And that's about the first half of the book. You're welcome.
Do either of my other co-hosts want to summarize the second half of the book, or should we just go into our discussion banners?
I read it back in January. I don't remember where this book ends, so I don't want to go and then just keep going.
I think that'll suffice.
I
just
agree.
kind of
I think that
summarize things.
suffices just to get our toe into Ranger's Apprentice.
Thanks.
I like how Anne didn't mention at all what, like, the Rangers do.
I mentioned
Yeah,
it.
he's just
They have
painting
eyes
by
and ears.
book.
Fair enough. Okay. Do we want, again, plot and pacing or mentor apprentice? The second one. Okay.
This one? I'm
Yes,
down.
this one.
Sure.
The book is called Ranger's Apprentice, so you kind of know that it's a book about an apprentice. I've said a lot of times that, like, one of my favorite tropes is, like, the gruff old mentor. I don't like the wise old mentor, but the gruff, like, old mentor is my jam. And I think Halt definitely fits that description of just being kind of, like, rough around the edges,
Oh,
a
yeah.
little bit, I don't know, not the best conversationalist, a little bit distancing Will from him. It's not that he's not friendly and helpful to Will. It just he's, you know, I feel like Anne said, when he first arrives, he's kind of like, you need to do the cleaning, you need to do the brunt work, you know, he's not
going to baby him.
He's not going to baby him. He's not, like, super forthcoming with him, or But again, it's kind of, it would be weird if the apprentice was, like, too, like, holding his hand and being, like, really.
Yeah, though he is
What?
a little bit, like, sarcastic. Like, there's times where he's like, you do, like, he's, like, asking, like, you know, or, like, he's telling him where to find all these things, and then he's like, well, you know where the floor is, right? Or another time when he's talking about cooking, well, you know what food is, right? Like,
I will say,
a
though,
little
that
condescending.
Flanagan writes it really well, because he shows all of that and the sarcasm and whatnot, but he also shows you how good Will gets it compared to Horace, right? Because
yeah.
then it goes to Horace, and Horace is just in this, like, boot camp type hell. even without the bullies, right? And certainly with the bullies. But then you just realize when you kind of like get that chapter, and I'm sure you passed this chapter, but you get that chapter where it's all described like what it's like for the first time with Horace. And then you think back and you realize that Will just has it like so cushy and so luxurious in comparison to like Battle School. And I just think that was really well done, and it was good like show versus tell kind of thing where Flanagan did that. But yeah,
I agree, Michael, because especially since we know that Battle School was Will's wish. So he's like, pretty apprehensive about being the Ranger's apprentice. This is not his ideal situation.
To be fair, he doesn't know what a ranger do. Like,
that is
and apparently neither do we.
They're like the Secret Service. They just go around learning stuff and shooting arrows.
Yeah, they're kind of like medieval secret agents is how I thought about them.
I think of the word reconnaissance when I think of Rangers. Also,
It's a good word.
I don't know that word.
Learning is fun.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you need someone to go somewhere, like say beyond your borders, and you need to gather intel about what's going on. If there's rumblings about, there's enemy forces, even on the move, and kind of like gathering and stuff like that. There's things going on, and you need to have intelligence or intel coming back to you about all of that. The person who's going to go and do all of that is the person who's on the reconnaissance mission, basically.
Okay.
So that's,
Thank you.
that would be reconnaissance.
Does anybody have anything to say about the mentor-apprentice trope banner?
In general, or like specifically in this one?
Just about this topic. Otherwise, I'll put up a different discussion banner if we don't have anything to say about it.
Well, I can bring up the same point I brought up in the other discussion, that I feel like there's two ways this goes. Either your mentor is like really old and like really like old and like very far from the main character, or your mentor is kind of not old and they end up dating, which is always really weird. And I very much prefer when the mentor is like old and there's that very like distinct line of like, okay, this is an adult, this is not as much, and there's no like romantic or sexual thing between them, because I feel like that gets weird. It gets weird.
Look, guys, Gaze Everywhere is here doing the work for you, saying, I love the mentor-apprentice trope, especially if it's twisted up a bit and not quite that healthy. No, that's a great point, though.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty healthy in this book, but this is also kind of a kid's book.
Yeah.
It is. And it's also, I feel like this is a trope that works really well when the child or the main character is an orphan, just because then the mentor has like that really parental figure in their life.
Yeah.
When I first read this, I actually was really thinking about this kind of almost like a mashup of two other Nostalgia Train picks, which was kind of just like the high fantasy vibes of like Aragon meets like the Mentor Apprentice of Cirque du Freak.
Yes!
Like, if you liked those two books, you would love Ranger's Apprentice, I bet. Like,
I want you to know that first time I read this book, I've always imagined Halt as looking like Jeremy Irons from the Aragon movie. He just reminded me of Brom, and I'm like,
oh my gosh, he would be good. Yeah.
I could see that.
Irons would have been the perfect Halt if this ever became a movie, but now he's like old, so.
Love that. Not 15 anymore.
No, she means Halt, though.
Yeah.
Like Jeremy Irons
is not
Halt.
15 anymore. So he can't play Holt because he's not 15.
Holt is in like his 30s.
Yeah, you're talking about
shit.
Will.
I am. Oh my bad.
These are the worst. Wait, here we go. Like, oh, this is your parental figure, but like they're not good people. They are kind of effed up, actually.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I think definitely in Cirque du Freak, Mr. Crepsley fits that a little bit better, you know.
I love him so much. See, I have a connection to that dude, but I did read like 12 books with him in it. Whereas I do not really care for Holt that much, but I feel like it's easier to like Holt from the beginning. Like if you just look at the first book basis, I like Holt significantly more than I like Mr. Crepsley after just the first one. but
Like-
I've had time for him to grow on me.
I mean, I'm not like 100% like familiar with like a D&D alignment chart, but Holt is like to me much more good, where Crepsley is a little bit more like
Questionable.
questionable.
Oh, there's nothing questionable about Holt.
Yeah, Holt just seems like a really outstanding citizen. Even though he has like cool, dark, like lurker, ranger vibes.
He's not like
Yeah.
golden retriever kind of character, but he's still a good guy.
Yeah. He's like, like kind of like that growling German shepherd that like is the police dog. Like he's scary, but he's a good guy.
Yeah, mix
Yeah.
it with the golden retriever. Looks like a German shepherd is a golden retriever.
I would sort of add like it's like he's gruff and he's kind of like sour and all of that, brooding, whatever. But there's absolutely nothing bad about him. Like you wouldn't feel there was anything bad about him at all.
I also don't feel
And
like
he
he's
would be
mean
a
or unfair.
good person.
Yeah.
Hmm?
I said I also don't think that he's mean or unfair in like his treatment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Greyhound. Not even a regular greyhound, an Italian greyhound. Okay.
He's
I don't know if
I
I
don't.
get this.
All of the countries in Ranger's Apprentice are like very obviously meant to match up with the real world ones, and I don't remember where Holt is from, but he's not from the main country.
The main country being like England or something.
Yeah, Araluen, which literally up until like maybe 3 years ago, I always pronounced it as Arulian, but it's Araluen, and it blew my mind when I realized I was wrong on that.
Well, I was on the Ranger's Apprentice fan wiki the other day, but I don't have that tab open right now, and it had a list of all the countries, and people like the fans had kind of like written in the comments. If you've ever been like on fan wiki pages, like the comments of people saying this country stands for this, and then people were like debating, no, it's this. Like,
Oh yeah,
it was
Scandinavia
interesting.
is a really big point of debate.
I know
What it could
nobody
have
can
been
decide what the Scandinavian area is supposed to be in the Ranger's Apprentice world.
So vague, right?
It's really vague, that one.
So elusive.
It's elusive. But yeah, I have to say the trope is, for me, the main selling point of the book and my favorite part of the book. Especially since later in the book we get to see Halt's previous apprentice, Gillen.
We do.
And I really liked that. I don't know. I just like that. I don't know else how to say it. Like when you see like levels, like almost like institution or like tradition, like being followed. There's something very satisfying about that.
And it really does feel
you
like
something?
when you get Gillen, you get like the step in between Halt and Will. It really feels that way.
This is like kind of a spoiler, but
Don't
not
do it.
like it's oh, I don't want to say it if you don't want to hear it, but like
Just say it.
he's not an apprentice for the whole series.
Oh, yeah, that
The
makes
whole
sense.
series is called Ranger's Apprentice, so you would think he'd be an apprentice till like the end of it, and then he like graduates. But no, he's only an apprentice for the first few books.
I mean,
Yeah,
Cirque the
that
Freak
makes-
is still called Cirque the Freak, even though they're not with the Cirque the Freak.
That's also true, yeah.
I don't know. I just remember when I was reading these, and then I got to the part where he like graduates and becomes his own ranger, and he like goes to his own fief and everything. I'm like, what is this? This is an apprenticeship.
So he gets like a silver oak leaf amulet at that point.
Yep. The apprentices have bronze, the actual rangers have silver, and then when you retire, you get a different one. It's not gold, but I don't remember what it is.
Maybe it's like an actual oak leaf that degrades, kind of like your body's doing.
You would know
Well-
that, wouldn't you?
This is like the pronouncing thing. Like you guys know, because I mentioned it in the Discord about me pronouncing Holt's name wrong the entire time. That I thought it was Holt, even when I read it 2 years ago or 1 year ago. What is time? I thought it was Holt.
Did you
Yeah.
do the audiobook both times?
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Well,
thing is, I
he has an accent, so
actually bought a physical copy of it when I was home in the U.S. this summer. I found it at the thrift shop. But when I was like cutting weight for my bag because my bags were overweight, I took out all the books I'd already read. So it's on my brother's shelf now. He's inherited
Good
it.
for him.
and why is he not in the chat right now?
You
Well,
can't know about my double life as a book club host.
obviously.
Or maybe my brother's gays everywhere.
Just saying, I've never seen gays everywhere and your brother in the same room.
Blink twice if you're Violet's brother.
Do call in, gays everywhere.
This is why people can't be friends with us.
What's that supposed to mean? We made new friends earlier. You and I.
That's true.
That's a good point.
Okay, new banner. Unless you guys have anything else to say, we're moving on to plot and pacing.
Not currently.
Okay. I also have the power to bring back banners if thoughts arise.
No, it's gone forever. We can't talk about that trope ever again.
I think the first thing talking plot and pacing I want to bring up is the prologue.
Yes.
There's a prologue.
That was so fucking hard to get through.
Yeah. If I was
Was it
John
really?
Flanagan, I might have cut that out. Or I don't know, put that
So that's
info
like
dump somewhere else.
everything Morgorath, right?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Morgareth was the
No,
dark around the world with the war goals.
Okay.
I see this making sense, especially when you see the series. I'm assuming they're gonna fight it eventually. So setting this up right at the beginning to know who our enemy is. I see that, but it was still so hard to get through, and it almost made me want to DNF the book. And then as soon as we got to our main characters, we're like, okay, this is a story. I give a shit. But before that, for the prologue,
But-
absolutely not.
But it is a short prologue, though.
I don't
still
think
too
any
long.
of the other books have prologues.
Good. He learned his lesson.
Honestly, I forgot that this had I literally just read this a few months ago. I've read it maybe 10 times in my whole life, and I literally did not remember that it had a prologue.
Oh, this is something different, but did you see that the book is dedicated to Michael?
Oh wait,
Oh
I'll
yeah,
make you big.
I remember.
How do you feel about that, Michael?
Thank you. Woot woot.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm
Yeah.
gonna look. The prologue is only 4 pages.
The prologue to me kind of again gave me flashbacks to Aragon, just because the war goals and the Urgles was. But actually, Aragon was published before this book. At first, I was thinking oh, maybe this was another inspiration for Christopher Paolini, but then I was like, actually, no, this came after Aragon. I believe.
Wasn't Aragon 2001 or something? 2002?
Yeah, 2002, and this was 2004. So yeah, I think Aragon was 2002 indie pub, and then got picked up by Trade Pub in 03.
But I mean,
could
they're
be
both
slightly wrong.
very
This
I don't want
is
to say
also
generic fantasy,
2004. Sorry.
but it's not hard to get into. There's nothing complex about it. It's very common elements in fantasy across both series.
Yeah, it feels like cutting with the grain.
Though in Aragon, the fantasy aspect, the magical aspect of it is very obvious because there's dragons. Whereas this is just give me medieval setting and nothing interesting about it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there's not a ton of in the first arc you get the Wargles and a couple of other fantasy creatures, but you don't really get that over the whole series. It's not drenched in magic. It's more about the characters than the world.
Mm-hmm. It says the prologue I think was necessary, but it's not the best. Okay. That dramatic pause got me there. After that, I think it becomes pretty good with its pacing, at least for my poor standards.
I had
okay.
no beef with the prologue at all, really.
Well, you'll
I think
see
because
anyway.
it was just short, and I just read it, and I was good with it.
I think my beef with the prologue was just that, since I had read this a year ago, I was like, what? I don't remember this. And then I was like, oh no, this isn't the main story. This is just the prologue. It's where's Will? I was like, what's going on? I had a little bit of a blonde moment. I mean, I think it was good getting the chapters from Horace to contrast his life in Battle School. But at some point, I was like, I want to go back to Will at sometimes.
Yeah, Horace is, we start off on the wrong foot with him because he's kind of a bully, and then him getting bullied, I'm just like, yeah, well, sucks to be you, but also, karma.
But I think like John Flanagan really writes it that we empathize with Horace because we know the instructors were like, he's really talented. So it's like, if we didn't know that and just saw that he was getting like picked on by the other Battle School kids, we'd be like, oh, he's getting his comeuppance. But it's like, oh no, they're just like jealous of him. I don't know. I know it kind of humbles him in a way, but also, I don't know. Those bullies were just, I couldn't get over them always saying baby. It just really bothered me.
That is
See,
rough.
I just read it in a very thick Cockney accent in my head, and it made it even funnier. And so it felt less weird that they were saying baby.
How would it
sounded
sound
weird
in an accent?
In the audiobook, it sounded weird.
Yeah.
Well,
The other pacing thing for me is, I think this is just my personal preference, like some of the more like action-y scenes, like, I don't know, I guess I didn't really, they seem to drag for me just because like, I'm sure like maybe kids reading this were into that, but like me as an adult, I was like, I really care about the bigger plot and like the smaller character issues than like the, breaking down the blow by blow of action scene.
especially because he does go like into detail, and I guess it's important that he goes into detail about the different weapons that they have and how they're going to use it and stuff like that. But I just don't care. Like, I don't care what the knife looks like, and I don't care how you use the knife. That's just
See, I love those details.
Yeah, see, I was gonna say, that's what I said, I think it's just a taste thing for me.
Yeah, I'm more with Mars.
I feel like the action scenes are definitely so detailed, but I feel like they still go pretty quickly. Like, none of these chapters are insanely long or bogged down. Like, it still keeps a pretty good pace.
Ooh, that brings up another point that actually I wrote in my notes. How he split up chapters. Like the choosing ceremony was like split between multiple chapters. It was like mid-conversation talking, and then it was like next chapter. I was like, what?
The first one is like the first person, then it's the other three, and then it's him. In like 3 different chapters.
Yeah, it was like, why wasn't that just one chapter? Because it's the same scene.
Yeah. No, that weirded me out too.
It would have been a pretty long chapter, though.
Yeah, but
it would have
made sense. Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of writers will do that, though.
No. None that I respect.
I don't know. I think if you're going to cut something mid-scene, it has to like either end on like a dramatic moment or like a fake out or like...
Or you have to like take it to a different place, like end this scene mid-scene, go to a different place at a different time, and then go back to that scene and continue it afterwards. But we just cut it only to go right back to it.
Yeah.
It's like a commercial break during a TV show.
Exactly. It is like that.
Yeah, it was just weird. I didn't notice it the first time I read it, but this time it was like really obvious to me, like the chapter breaks, because it was like chapter 3, and I was like, what? You just cut in the middle of the scene. I was like, why did you just announce a new chapter? Like, I was just really perplexed. And it wasn't the only time he did that, so I was like, okay, I don't know how he decided to break up these chapters, but
I think it was because he had children in mind, and like no child wants to read a 20-page chapter.
Yeah,
I don't even want to read a 20-page chapter.
Yeah, maybe it was more that thinking that like when you're writing for younger kids are reading by the chapter.
Yeah. And to be fair, I don't think that every single chapter has to end on some kind of bombshell or cliffhanger or anything to get you to want to start reading the next chapter or anything. I think it's okay to have a chill ending to a chapter and a chill beginning to a next.
Well,
I'm okay with it.
The writing craft books I read, Michael, would tell you you're wrong. Who is it? Who's the one who wrote Lisa Cron? That's what I'm thinking of. Who wrote Story Genius? She said it always has to end on, but and then, and or what, or I don't know. She has a list. Watch my review video.
Yeah, because ideally you'd want the reader to not stop the book, but if there's no cliffhanger, you could
Yeah,
just be like, okay, end of chapter.
The
let's
reader
go.
should always be asking some sort of question at the end of a chapter,
So they
even
can
if it's
keep that in their mind.
yeah,
and
even
want
if
to
it's
go
not
back to
something
it.
shocking. It could also just be like, and she set down her handkerchief and went to bed, and then you could be wondering like, oh, but was she really sad or?
I would say though that every chapter in the book at least ends a little bit that way. Like there's at least a little bit of sort of like poignancy at the end of every chapter, I would say.
I don't know if John Flanagan was going for poignancy with this. I think he was going for like, you know what kids like? Medieval swordplay.
And he would be right.
Yeah, I think he was like, there's a market for that.
Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yeah, I was also trying to figure out what that was.
I also just to kind of go back a little bit to like the fighting scenes. I feel that Flanagan did a really good job of capturing the sort of like fundamental bravery that it takes to basically fight something or someone fierce where there is like a true danger there. Because like, and I've read about this, documented a lot, and de Cervantes talks about it in Don Quixote also. But like when firearms were first like invented and like kind of brought into the world, there was a lot of thought of how, you know, it didn't require true bravery to use a firearm because you could kind of just prime it, and you could prime the weapon ahead of time, and then when it was ready, you could basically just kind of aim it and pull the trigger, and from a distance, and it would sort of do the like the killing basically for you. And you know, so up to then in history, it was all about actually getting to close quarters and actually doing the killing yourself and stuff, even if the weapon was like an extension of you or something. And I just felt that Flanagan did a really good job of showing the bravery that it takes to really do that, like sans firearms, like it, or in a time before firearms. And I just thought that was well done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think if you're into
Because
that
you know,
kind of stuff,
when it comes to the boar, for example, or actually, as it turns out, boars,
boars,
you know, it's about the boar spears, and it's about the technique of how you know, this is how you use the boar spear and kill the boar, and you have to let it run at you, you know, for that to all occur. And I was just kind of thinking to myself, you know, nowadays you would just take a 308 and you just point it at the thing and pull the trigger, and that would kind of be it. And that wouldn't require nearly the bravery that it would, you know, to use this boar spear thing. And so that's just kind of what I got out of it.
Oh, but spears are so much fun, Michael. Throwing them. I had it in school, like for like a semester. It was really random.
Interesting.
I'm gonna change the discussion banner. Anna's frozen.
She'll come back.
It's not a bad freeze frame. I mean,
It could be worse.
yeah.
Pros and writing
It's a
style?
6 out of 10.
I'd give it a 7.
Not down.
Do we have any thoughts on the writing style? I mean, I liked, I think the language was very accessible.
Oh, hi, I'm
way-
back.
Oh yeah.
The way it was written, like it had all the flair of a fantasy, without being convoluted or pretentious. It was easily digestible.
And it's not like it's very simple, but not in a way that it feels like he's dumbing it down for you.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
it still feels like you're reading something and like taking in information without it being like, and this is what a bow is, and this is an arrow.
Yeah, it's well written, certainly for like the type of book that it is and the type of audience that it's aiming for.
Yeah.
Holt would explain stuff like that though if he was in a mood.
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think the dialogue reads kind of like for the children's audience. It's the one thing that it's like, oh, okay, this is like kids' dialogue. But I mean, maybe that's just me.
No, see, I feel like I wanted to talk about this later, but I do feel like this is a very kids book, and I would have loved this if I read it as, a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old. But now that I've read books that are like written for older audiences, I can compare it. And that kind of like doesn't ruin it for me, but definitely puts it in perspective. And I'm like, okay, this is written for a younger audience, which I am not, which I can acknowledge, but yeah.
See, I feel like even if I read this for the first time now, I would still love it. But that's just because my reading taste is like 90%. If it's written for a teenage boy, I will love it. Like, that's just my taste, so.
That's funny.
Yeah. I like, okay, this is not really going to the discussion banner, but like, I think for me, what would have just brought it a little bit more was having more magic in the world. Would have really done it for me.
I agree.
That's fair.
Though
I was okay. I was okay with the sort of lack of magic.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, there's good other like stories. Like Robin Hood doesn't have magic, but it's still like set in the same like type of place and stuff. And I love Robin Hood, like both stories and like series and movies and all of them. But then again, that's also again for older people.
You've seen the like the Kevin Costner Robin
Yes,
Hood movie from like the early 90s?
I will cut your heart out with a spoon. I will do it.
I think
What?
the only Robin Hood I've seen is
That's
Men
a
in
quote.
Oh.
It's
been a
what the
long
sheriff
time.
says. Like, I think it's the sheriff is like, oh
Is
yeah,
it
I'll cut out his
going
heart.
Off topic.
Yeah, sorry.
Does anybody have any more thoughts about the writing style?
No.
Okay.
Prose and writing style, check.
Themes,
good.
symbols, and motifs. Everybody's favorite banner. I don't know why people hate this one so much.
Well, it's so vague.
literary analysis.
I mean, we definitely talked about, I think for Will, I mean, his like story arc is definitely kind of like what you think you want for your future versus like what's right for you. Whereas he really, wanted to be in battle school, and then we get to see Horace's experience in battle school and try to imagine how would have Will done in that situation.
Terrible.
And then he ended up in a really nice situation, being a ranger's apprentice. And it really suited his strengths.
Right. Well, just in relation to like Horace, I'd say like, for one thing, Will probably wouldn't have gotten bullied. Like for Horace, what really did it was that, like the bullying, right, which was really intense. But like, I don't think that Alda, Bryn, and Jerome would have bullied Will, because I think they bully Horace because essentially they're intimidated by him, or they're even they're intimidated by him in terms of what they see in him, and others also what the others see in him, and so they feel like they have to kind of like assert their dominance or something like that. And I don't feel like if they saw Will as small as he was in battle school, if he'd made it, I don't feel like they would have
felt the need to pee
bullied
on him.
I don't think that they were that. I think you're giving them more credit.
I also think they would have bullied Will.
Because
Yeah,
like
for
Horace
sure.
bullied Will.
Yeah, I think it might have actually been a different dynamic where Horace would have bullied Will with them. We're all just going.
So do you
against
feel
Will.
that the three of them would have sort of just bullied anyone who was a ward and not sort of coming
No, I think they would have
into
bullied anyone
the
they
thing
found any
from
reason
the...
to bully.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too. I think
Okay,
they were
so
just
so
bullies.
it's like if you just come into the school as a ward and you kind of stick out like that and you're just kind of different, you feel like they would just bully you regardless.
Yeah, or if you're too good, or too bad, or too tall, or too small, like they would have found a reason.
Yeah,
That's
but I
fair.
also think like Horace was kind of on his own there, and they were like had a little bit safety in numbers. They were a little
Oh,
gang
yeah.
together in battle school, and I think if Will would have been in battle school with Horace, Horace had already kind of picked on Will, and I think they would have ended up also a bigger rift between them because Will would have been struggling, Horace would have been doing well. There would have been a different dynamic if that would have been the way Flanagan chose to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it wouldn't be called Ranger's Apprentice in that case, would it?
Well, maybe he would have became a ranger at the end, and
Maybe.
Well, it's
We
just
don't know.
theoretical.
sorry.
Yeah.
I think the theme of finding yourself in a world set by such rigid rules is interesting. Also, the bullying was so excessive it really made me uncomfortable. Same.
Actually, Gaze, now that you mention it, I remember there was this one passage, like there's a few of the bullying passages, right? But there was one like passage in one of the later scenes where the word hate was used. And it was kind of like, I think Flanagan did a really good job of it, but hate is a strong word. And once you use that particular word, I do feel like it goes to a different level, right? So now when you're suddenly describing, Alda, Bren, and Jerome as hating, what's his name, Horace, or having hatred for him, I feel like it goes to another level, and it's not just sort of bullying for the sake of bullying or whatever. And I just thought that was I just felt he wrote it well there on an emotional level, because he just basically with that one word, he took it to a different level. And yeah.
I think he did the whole bullying pretty well. Like, I could see exactly that happening to people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I just wish that those bullies would have been a little bit more original, like with instead of just always calling him a baby.
Oh, I think it hits though still, because I feel like Flanagan does a really good job of like making sure that we know that the structures were not set up for that way. Whereas Horace thinks, okay, this is just how it is. Whereas we know that's not how it should be, and like the people in charge don't actually want it to be that way.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big thing that for me did it, where I was like, oh, Horace.
And yeah, also at least Flanagan does basically express that Alda is kind of like the leader of the three. So you can kind of just like, for me, I was kind of like, okay, well, Alda is basically the leader. Jerome has like the name that's like kind of like easier to remember or something. And then Bryn is just like the third one. And so it's kind of like, I can at least kind of characterize them a little bit like that, instead of them just being like three people like all with the same faces.
I have a question for you guys. Who do you think like had the more dramatic character arc between Will and Horace?
Dramatic?
Definitely
Yeah, like
Horace.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because even though Will
yeah.
is the protagonist, I think Horace gets a better arc.
Will's
usually
is more personal, and Horace is more like how he interacts with others is what changes, whereas Will's change is all about how he thinks of himself.
True.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
And-
for me, like if I'm thinking as like a writer, like if I'm writing something multi-POV, my character who goes through the most change is my protagonist. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Well,
Or like
Horace
my
is
alpha
also-
protagonist.
Yeah.
I would say Horace, like I would agree. But I would say Horace because of like because
Okay.
of the
Violet is the queen
specific
of milk.
word. The
Halt and
specific word
horse.
that you use of
No,
dramatic.
Holt and Horse. Sorry, Michael, we're just talking over you.
The specific word that you use of dramatic.
Oh,
right?
sorry.
So if you're going to use that specific word, like, i.e., who has the more dramatic arc, then I would definitely say Horace. It's actually a very good word to describe his arc. Period. Dramatic, but
Well, I also just think that it's like different if you look at it like Horace starts off in a better position than Will does, but Will doesn't have like as high highs and as low lows as Horace, because Horace really like drops and then goes back
That's
up,
true,
whereas Will doesn't like have that dramatic drop. Like it doesn't get that bad for him.
Yeah,
In
you're
fact,
right.
I'd say it pretty much almost immediately gets better for him and then stays pretty
Yeah.
consistent.
Will even didn't seem like that disappointed about not getting into battle school. Like,
Yeah,
I
he was
kind
sad
of
for like a chapter.
Yeah, I was expecting maybe that like a more devastation from him. Like, I don't know. It just seems like Will was almost like delusional, thinking he was going to get into battle school. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like he knew it wasn't going to happen.
I don't know. I
On
feel
a
like he
deeper
thought it
level.
was good.
He's
Maybe on a
like-
deeper level. Yeah.
When he's like preparing himself for it, he's like talking about how he knows he's small and everything, but like his dad was in the army. He has to be there.
Was he though?
Yes.
There's a spoiler banner there.
Well, if Anne read the book, she would know. It's not a.
I tried my best, okay? I did my best. Michael, they've been mean to me while you were gone.
Oh, really?
Lies and slander.
You have no proof.
Yes, I have. It's on the internet.
Only if Violet keeps this public.
Well, let me go and screen grab it right now for you.
Okay, you do that. I'm trying to think of like any motifs. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin.
It's all right. Anne didn't read the book either.
That is
Anne
not
didn't
true.
finish the book. Okay, we have to give her credit where credit is due. She did read half of it.
Okay, she read half of it.
See, if Zara's stream hadn't run for like an hour and a half longer than any regular stream, I would have finished the book.
How long was the stream?
3.5 hours.
Oh, geez.
Well, there was a lot of sprints there, Anne, for you to be reading, which I think you were. So,
I tried my best. There was just also a lot of chatting.
okay, I'm trying to think of themes and symbols and motifs. I mean, we want to talk about the ponies or no?
Yes. Go
There's
ahead.
ponies in this book.
Well, I think they're sort of like. Is there actually like one specific breed of horse that's considered like the Rangers?
That's
breed
what
of
I
horse?
understood.
Or
They explain in later books how they took a bunch of different kinds of horses and bred them for specific traits. Like this
Okay.
one type of horse is really resilient and this other type of horse is really fast, and so they like made their own kind of horse to have all of the traits they wanted.
Okay, but actually, now that as I say that, I remember.
Yeah, I'm
like,
just going to bring up that scene when they say that.
Halt's horse. What's Halt's horse's name again?
I can never remember. I feel like
Neither.
I looked it up like maybe 3 times while reading it, and I
Yeah.
couldn't remember.
It was one
So-
of those like went in one ear, out the other immediately.
Yeah, and it's only said like twice, but
Hold on, I'll Google it.
I remember Tug. I'm always going to remember Tug. That's an easy
Yeah.
name.
but the thing is, his horse is significantly bigger than Will's, or bigger, in other words, than Tug. So actually, I wouldn't even think they were the exact same sort of breed anyway.
Abelard.
But
Abelard.
that's it. Yeah. Oh, and it's said actually a few times. But actually, right in the like when the story first introduces the horses, that name isn't dropped. Maybe that's why it's harder to remember or something. And then a little bit later, they ask him, and he says,
Yeah, I
Abelard.
agree, Michael. Like that scene when I was reading it over this time around, I was like, I'd remembered that the horses had names. So when we're meeting them for the first time, I was like, why aren't they introducing the horses' names right away? And I was like, what is the name? What is the name? Like I was like waiting for them to say it.
Yeah.
So it's like I was trying to remember. Well, Tug was easy to remember. But wasn't there this scene, or am I misremembering? Like when he is at the festival and he brings Tug, and that's where he's like, Will's kind of like showing off his horse, or he's like happy that he has it. And then that's when the others are like, that's just a shaggy little pony. Like,
Well, that was only Horace saying that to be mean.
oh, I just figured that it looked a little bit shaggier and little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he like berates it by calling it like a shaggy dog or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I don't know. Like I said in the Tome Traveler thing, I kind of imagined it as almost like a little Icelandic ponies or horses. If you've seen those, how they look. That's how I imagined the Rangers horses in my head.
I like how it's not just the ranger horses that are like important. Like I feel like horses are a pretty strong theme throughout, and like even Horace, when he gets a horse, that horse is very important throughout. Yeah, Horace's horse.
Horace's horse.
Yeah, Kicker.
And
Who I
also-
always use female pronouns for, and then I was reading the 4th book this morning, and I'm like, Kicker is a boy. I don't know why I thought this horse was a girl the whole time.
He was giving feminine energy.
Apparently,
And I do remember Gillen's horse is Blaze. And Blaze is, I don't know anything about horses, but Blaze is referred to a few times as being a bay horse. And Blaze is like...
coloring, right?
Huh? Is that
Bay
what it...
is like a tannish color?
Does it just refer to like the...
Let's just
the color
ask
of
our
the coat,
resident
or-
horse girly over here. Gaze, let us
Colin.
know. Colin.
Yeah. And Blaze is, like, I kind of think like this kind of the same size as Abelard, like significantly larger than Tug. But yeah.
Doug also is younger than the others, right?
Yeah, he like just came out of the pony training.
Thought you were gonna say kid just came out of the womb.
No.
Fully trained at that. Wow.
Yeah, they were bred to excellence.
Specific things, yeah.
I can't think of like any other symbols or motifs off the top of my head.
I mean the oak leaf.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say that. I was
There's also...
okay, Michael, you can talk.
Oh, okay.
I was cutting you off.
I was cutting you off, but there's also the definitely like strong theme of like stories, and like how you have like something that happens and there's like an actual truth to this thing happening, and then like that being different from like this story's passed down, and like how the stories change the events and stuff, and it's like a totally different thing by the time it becomes like sort of like folklore. Like the whole thing, remember with the old farmer's like, wait, you can't be Halt. Halt's like twice as tall as two men and like as wide as well.
Yeah, that was a cute part. I
And
loved
Halt
that.
is just like, okay, whatever, just go to the freaking castle.
Mm.
And yeah, that's definitely a theme that comes up a few times, and it's definitely like a strong theme that Flanagan wants to emphasize. And I think it's more like a strong theme in the second half of the book, as I recall. But
yeah, even like Will's like idea of his dad.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say that.
exactly.
How he kind of like mythologizes his own dad
Yeah.
on one little fact that he's told.
Yeah.
It's a good one, Michael. Thank you for obeying the banner. Respecting the banner. Obeying was the wrong word.
We respect the banner.
Respect the banner. It's just coloring.
Oh,
Think Spirit, the stallion of the Cimarron.
I have no idea what that's supposed to tell me.
Okay, I'm just gonna take down the banner and we can just do some free talking now. Because I don't have any other, structured talk. Do you guys have any other thoughts? Like, what do we think about the boar scene? What do you guys think about the subtitle Ruins of Gorlan? Do we have any thoughts on any of this?
What do we think about the woman walking in the kitchen? Diplomacy.
That's true.
What do we think of like the oh my gosh, it starts with a K. The
Kalkara?
beast, yeah, the Calcara. What do we think of like the Calcara species, like waxy hair that like somehow acts as like almost like Kevlar, where it's like you can't shoot through it and you can't like even like a razor sharp broadsword can't really penetrate it. I thought that was a little weird, like it's hair, but it's like waxy and it's like interwoven, so it's like this weird kind of Kevlar. And okay, like
a different kind of plot armor, but I'm ching. Sorry. I liked them because they were like the most fantasy thing in the book. So
yeah, I was also kind of like, well, if you know about the whole eyes thing, like, can't you kind of like just not look at the eyes, like, you know?
Well, I feel like in the heat of battle, you can't really control that very well. You kind of look where you look.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anne is very upset.
Yeah, I'm mostly upset at Gay's comments.
Jace has been respecting the banners, which is more than I can say for us.
We're trying our best, okay?
Our best sucks. What did you guys think about the very end of the book? Sorry, Anne. When they kind of have like this moment where it seems like they're all pairing up, like the friends. Oh, and has herself.
Well,
I don't remember.
yeah, it kind of just feels like, oh, it's the end of the story, and it's like Alice just kind of kisses Will, and it's kind of just whatever to me.
To me, it felt really unnecessary.
Wait, explain what happens. I don't remember specifically what you're talking about.
Like, I felt like there's a kind of like a flirtation.
So, like if you remember, Mars, like in the
up at the end,
yeah, in
actually,
the end,
to be fair.
in the end, in the village outside, like in the village, they have kind of like a party that celebrates like everything that's just gone on with the Calcara. Not to say anything about like the war that's coming up, but just to celebrate, I guess, for that one night or whatever, to celebrate what's happened with the Calcara. They have the party and stuff, and the innkeeper is like generous, and he's kind of like, oh, don't worry, it's all on the house. And if you remember that, and then the music breaks out and they start dancing, and Horace or Jenny says like, who's gonna dance with me? And then Horace kind of claims Jenny, takes her hand, and then it's kind of like because George is busy with everything coming up. He's busy with all the paperwork and everything for the coming as it definitely seems to be war. And so it's just Alice and Will left at the table. And then Alice basically leans over and kisses Will. And I would agree with Violet that it just felt kind of unnecessary. It didn't feel wrong. It didn't really feel forced or anything. It just felt a little unnecessary.
Yeah, I think it would have been just as impactful just to see the friends all together at the end without there being that little romantic tinge.
If it makes you feel better, they're not like romantically a thing. Like Horace and Jenny and everything, like that doesn't. It's just they just dance. I honestly think Jenny is mentioned maybe twice in the rest of the series.
Justice for Jenny.
For real, I love Jenny. She's great.
Yeah, she's a unique character.
On the
There's a
time
weird thing
travelers.
that happens with her at one point, though it's not weird on her end. There's like a different character who I'm not going to say because spoilers, who like hits on her, and I'm like, you're like 15 years older than she is. Maybe not do that.
Oh.
Yeah, Jenny deserves better. Also, George. I don't think George is in like any of the other books.
But
I
George,
mean, he's barely in this book.
yeah, because even at the was it at the festival or at the end scene? Like George was too busy at the scribe school. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't
But
even
it
bother
also
coming.
starts off that way. Like, the author describes where everyone wants to go and what their like aspirations are, except for George. Like, he
George
just does
is
not
like-
get mentioned at all.
George is like your childhood friend who like you just lose contact with.
Justice for George and Jenny.
Yeah.
George is like George and the Beatles, you know? It's like just Paul and John. And,
I also
you know,
thought about that. He's like the one
and
that
then
everybody
Ringo
forgets
is also
about.
like, Ringo has his fair share of fans and everything. And then there's George.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, Steve is just giving an update of his life. What was I going to say? I swear I had a thought about the book. I don't remember.
Which book?
I also don't remember. What are we even talking about?
Graveyard? The Graveyard book?
That was
Is that what
probably
we're
it.
doing?
I'm also going to get the Google form to put in the chat. Even though I think you guys all filled it out because you're kind people.
We did. Michael and I thought we were funny when apparently we weren't. So
Yeah.
Because I have not yet announced the next book club picks because I have not yet cemented them.
yep.
Yeah.
So
Well, do you guys feel inclined to continue reading the series after this one?
I mean,
I would. I mean, you know, if it was like a book club thing, yeah.
I will
'Cause
say
will.
the second book in the series is definitely my favorite. So
Out of all of them.
out of the whole
I
series.
feel like I should give book 2 at least a chance because I even read Warrior Cat's book 2. So
Wow.
I didn't even
I
read
know.
the first one.
Yep. So this is the Google form for people who want to vote on books that we're going to read in the rest of the year.
Whoop
So
whoop.
we're actually not reading anything for April because we don't read anything during nano months. So
Good for you.
I have a month to get my shit together, but I want to announce it a little bit early that if people need library holds and stuff.
Right.
So
Well, you might not be reading stuff, but we for sure are reading stuff in April, since this is still technically the collab. Our theme for April is steampunk, and we are reading Leviathan by Scott Westfield. I will be reading A Winter's Promise by someone, Christelle DeVos.
the boat.
That's how that's pronounced. And then we are also reading Bone Shaker by Sherry Priest. Those are our picks if you want to read any of them with us. The live show will probably be the week after the last week of April, just because I'm hosting the write-a-thon that weekend and I don't want to have the live show the
Ooh,
write-a-thon.
okay, good, because I'm out of town that weekend anyway, so then I would be.
We haven't
I-
settled that.
Okay, don't do it when I'm out of town because I want to try to read all 3 of them this time.
Oh.
Oh.
Well,
So-
someone of us has to read anything at all. So you're welcome to join us again.
I don't have time to. I have A Winter's Promise. You can see it on my shelf right there. But I have no time to reread it, so I'm just going to go off my memory and hope I've got it.
You know what? That's okay.
And how long has it been?
About a year, maybe a little longer.
It's a
Okay.
pretty, it is a pretty
When was
cover.
this released? Does it count for the nostalgia train yet?
What bothers me about A Winter's Promise is that, so you know how in Europe the spines face the other way?
Oh, yeah.
The English version, the words are the wrong way.
Do you have the English translation?
No,
Yeah.
I have the German version.
Oh,
So if I put it like the
Can we
back
go
cover
full
is at the
screen on
top.
in?
Yeah, I'm on it.
So it's the same cover, I think, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is the name of the series, the name
Ooh.
of the book, and the author. And then the spine would face this way. So like
Yeah.
the back cover is up.
Yeah. I have like on my personal shelf, I have a mix of English and German language books, and the spines are all flipped. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
Oh, you
I
should
hate
have-
that.
Mars
Go
has.
this
Hold on.
way.
Put yours
Like,
up.
If this was
Oh.
a regular English book, the spine would be this way, but it's this way, and it bothers me because now I can't put it like how some of my
Yeah.
books are like stacked this way. I can't put this in the stack because then it'll be the wrong way.
Yeah.
Well, you just have to put it in the middle, and then you can't see which way it is, and just have it, be the right.
But that's still better. Like that's, in my opinion, that's still better than if you have an edition that's like, like a half an inch taller than everything else, and
Yes.
that
you
too.
don't
I have that
have
too.
like that nice line at least on the top, physically across the top of the books. Yeah.
Do we have any closing thoughts on Ranger's Apprentice? I mean, I don't feel like we didn't go that in depth, but I feel
like we talked about
it wasn't that deep.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I liked it, but as I said, I would have liked it significantly more had I read it when I was younger. But I'm still I have the first 6, so I'm gonna read those. If only to keep my friendship with Mars alive, because up until this point I have failed with the series. So I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'm having a good time reading them, so
That's great. But yeah, I very much agree with Violet's statement of this being a mashup of Cirque the Freak and Aragon, but only because I've read both of those series before. So I feel like whichever of these series, I would have had I read this before, I wouldn't probably feel that way. But then,
Yeah.
yeah, I liked it though. I mean, the first half.
Yeah, it's a good book.
So Michael, you'll be reading the next 5 books with me?
To be determined.
That's a no.
And I know, Mars, you're already working on a read through of the series.
You're on 5 now, right?
yeah. Technically 7 because book 7 comes before books 5 and 6 chronologically.
What? Can you send me the order I'm supposed to read them in, please?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. Because book 5, it's Will setting off as a full-fledged ranger, and everyone is like, excuse me, you're not gonna give us the ceremony and show him actually doing that. So then he went back and rewrote when he gets to the graduation and everything, and that's book 7. So it's just a little bit switching.
Rude. I don't have book 7.
That's your favorite number too.
It is.
Gazes shooketh.
Did you not know that? Yeah. Cassandra Lynn, who is a booktuber, this is Ranger's Apprentice is her favorite series. She has a very good video on her channel of the entire Ranger's Apprentice world and all the series and the different reading orders that you can, whether you want to do it chronologically or whatever. Her video is very comprehensive and I recommend.
I do have to say about Ranger's Apprentice, though, when I was doing research on it, it did seem like at one point the rights were bought for it, but I think the thing, it never went through. And when I was looking up stuff for it, there was a bunch of just fan memes and fan-made videos, fan-made, the fandom for this series is very alive in the online spaces.
Yeah, it's not a very huge fandom, but the people who like this series like it a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
even
it must have been fans if it's a 10-book series with spin-off series, right? People must have bought those books.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame we didn't have any Australians here to, represent, because John Flanagan is Australian, so
really,
maybe it had bigger marketing in Australia or in the UK. I have no idea. I guess I could have looked that up, but I didn't.
I mean, it was also the middle of the night for Australia, so nobody would have come if you had invited them.
Well, we could have accommodated. Wait, that's wild. Just gotta trust that the ranger actually did all the apprentice stuff. Okay, good. Nice of you guys. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, I think I can commit to at least book 2 sometime. I've been
Okay.
doing really good this year so far on reading the sequels of book club picks. I finished Era 1 of Mistborn. So,
Wow.
yeah, I
Nice.
read the first, the trilogy.
The first trilogy, right? There's
Yeah.
another trilogy after the first trilogy.
Yes.
It's a 4-book series afterwards.
Yeah.
Ah, it's almost a trilogy.
Yeah. So I finished the first 3, the first era. And
Mhm.
then I'm up to like what? Books. I just got book 7 from the Library of Serious Unfortunate Events. So I've read up to 6, but I
Ooh.
have 7 waiting for
Which
me.
one? 6 is, I think, the worst. No, it's the best. The 6 is my favorite in the series. But I didn't realize that up until later. The hotel. I mean, not the hotel. The elevator.
Apartment complex.
Yes. Oh,
I
I
hate
love
that
Esme.
I-
I love how much I hate her. Oh, and Jerome, he's I love.
That was my in-depth review. Imagine your book only being popular.
And imagine
Yeah,
like
I
you're
just
not
moved
even
there.
Australian, you're like Canadian or something. And
Yeah,
it just like
I just
explodes
moved
in
there.
Australia.
And pretend the rest of the world doesn't exist. Like, it's just me on this continent that's trying to kill me and the people that love my book. And that's it.
Yeah, but I feel like this happens all the time. Like something will just become kind of big in one country and then not in other places.
There was like a ranger camp, like a summer camp that did like a ranger theme. Like I want to say it was right after I became a fan of it. So like 2013, 2014-ish. Like in the United States. It was in like Ohio or something. But it was like a
Everything's in
pretty
Ohio.
big deal. There was stuff all over the internet about it within the fandom community. But it had
Cool.
like archery and riding horses and stuff like that.
Oh, and I bet they made them like give passwords to the horses. Okay, bringing up the passwords and the horses again. Like, am I the only one who was like wondering if the guys were trolling them or if it was like a real thing? Like,
I think it was a real thing.
yeah, the thing
I
is, at first
mean-
I'm like, it's a real thing, and I was like, oh no, they're just joking with him. And then later I was like, no, it's a real thing, and I was like, no, they're joking with him. I was like, no, it's a real thing.
Well, I mean,
Well-
Tug just completely bucks him off, and then he, after that, does whisper the password, and then I think Flanagan says, like Tug has a reaction to that, a positive reaction, and then Will gets on, and it's all good. So
Violet
Oh.
just doesn't trust horses.
I
just-
said they are huge.
No, I liked the inclusion of that just because I feel like it's one of those things, especially as a child reader, that kids can sit and fantasize about, like, what password would I give my horse?
Not
Like,
just that, I
yeah.
think it teaches
I'm gonna
healthy
have a-
boundaries.
I'm
Because
gonna
a
have
lot
a
of-
horse. I'm gonna name him Night Shadow, and the password is I don't
Yeah.
know, tacos.
I don't know. I feel like, unfortunately, in a lot of books, like, boundaries of animals are not respected at all. And it's just like, you immediately touch the animal or ride on the
Right.
animal. And, like, that's just not how it should be in real life. Like,
yeah,
especially
Please
if you
tell us
don't
about
know.
the theme of animal boundaries.
No, I just mean, I feel like we talked about this earlier where someone was like, they just started petting my dog. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, no, you can't just touch an animal without the permission of the handler of the animal and stuff like that. And a lot of books don't, you just swing on a horse and, off you go. But
Yeah, I'm making fun of you, but I also agree. I think it's nice that they treat the horses in the book as genuine characters.
yeah.
So I do like that.
Though, I mean, it's not a real boundary if you taught the horse the boundary. Like, you're still, or the trainer is still the person deciding where the boundary is drawn. So, Yeah.
I think we're also going to dip.
Bye,
do people-
bestie. Love you.
Do we want to introduce? Normally, I would then now say the next book that we're going to do, but since I don't have that finished,
Come hang
I
out
can
in our
just.
book club.
I'm just going to promise that I'm going to have it announced before. Let me say by the 15th, the middle of the month, I'll have it announced.
Come
hopefully
hang out
sooner.
at my book club. Sorry.
Okay, to be fair, Winter's Promise is literally one of my favorite books. So
I know. That's why I picked it.
the series gets weird though. So
Oh, I love
I
that.
want to continue on with the series so bad, but these are expensive even for paperbacks. and I can't find it online. So
Do you still have your Scribd account? Don't they have the audiobooks on Scribd?
I can't listen to an audiobook without like physically reading it along. It
Fair
just
enough.
doesn't stick in my brain. It
Fair
sucks.
enough.
I wish I was an audiobook girly.
Audiobooks are really good for Merry Visitor series. Aww.
Chase is having a
poor-
time.
This
Yeah.
doesn't even look like a heart, but you know what I mean to do.
How do you do those new hearts? I don't know how. Oh,
Like this?
I'm too old.
Use your pinkies? What? No, use your
What?
pointer finger and your middle finger.
Like this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop embarrassing myself.
Don't look at me. I'm 40.
Mars has a bunch of TBR videos up on their channel. Michael has a write-a-thon coming up. Anne has a write-a-thon
yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, Writertown Junction's coming up the weekend of the 15th of this month. So
Michael is
Yeah.
hosting the 3 Notes tomorrow. I don't know if you have that scheduled yet.
I
No.
don't. I will get to that later today.
Eventually.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna roll the outro now unless anybody else has anything to say.
Join our
Bye.
Discord.
Good book.